control, but you got to have the chemistry put together right with the players.
All right.
And because it's amazing when they go out there and they jam into each other.
How much of an impact do you think that Joe Girardi is going to have with the Philadelphia Phillies?
I think he's actually going to help Harper. Harper needs advice. You know, he's kind of in a quandary, it seems like, you know, and you know, he needs to cut his swing down a little bit to where he can have it more of an average. Mm-hmm. You know, and there are certain things that he needs to, you know, to be a ball player, and he's not there yet.
Yeah, and he's just such a good. I mean, even in a it's the first year of a 13-year deal, so you think you're getting the best right away. It's kind of, you know, signing those big contracts. I compare it to like drinking a nice soda at a restaurant. You notice when you get to the beginning, it's very sweet. It's great. Like the taste just fills your mouth. And then when you get to the end, it's kind of like when A-Rod was near the end of his contract with the Yankees. It's all fizzy and it tastes like watered down. Right. It's diluted. And a lot of people see Bryce Harper's first season in Philadelphia as like diluted soda. I don't really see that. I think he had a very good year. He on base near 380. You know, he hit almost 40 home runs. Right. A 4 wins above replacement season. He played good defense. Joe Girardi, and I agree with both of you guys. I think Joe Girardi, in my opinion, even when he was the Yankees manager, he got so much flack thrown his way because of the market that he was in. You and me discussed this earlier. The two biggest media markets, one you were just in, Los Angeles, and number one is New York. Girardi was in that for 10 years. He was also a catcher on those teams in the late 90s, so he knows how to win. Joe Girardi, especially in a city like Philadelphia, one of the most rabid fan bases, you know, go Eagles, Sixers, Phillies. He is the perfect guy for that city and a perfect guy for Bryce Harper because the distraction is not going to be on Harper more or less now than it's going to be on Girardi but Girardi's accustomed to it, and Girardi's going to be the perfect guy that Bryce Harper can come to, and he'll be a stabilizing force, I think, because he's dealt with it before. Washington, I understand you're in the political center of the world, pretty much, that controls everything. It's not the media market for baseball that Philadelphia is. I think Girardi is perfect. He's a sleeper manager of the year candidate, I think, in the National League.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I think let me take your Girardi point a little further, okay, Mark, and chime in where necessary, okay? Joe Girardi's been there and done that. You know, he won a World Series, and he was a stabilizing force in a good organization like the Yankees.
He also knows the NL East. He managed the Marlins. He knows that division.
Yeah, but when you look at his body of work in terms of the solid career and an even better or as good managerial career, does Girardi ever get in Hall of Fame down the road? I'm not so sure I would ever jump on his Hall of Fame bandwagon, but what I'll say about Joe Girardi is this. He's a good baseball man, and I'm glad he got a job. And I think that when I put a bow on all this stuff together, Mark, and you talk about old school managers potentially needed in two important situations, can you imagine whether Girardi would have been available for either of these two situations had those vacancies been available then versus the one he ultimately took? He's a guy what falls into that mold, right, Mark?
I agree totally. You know, Girardi, like you say, Lewis, is a catcher. And, you know, of course, he's been there. He's been on the spot with, you know, the Yankees. He's caught everything in the world right over there. He knows all the good, bad, and ugly. And, you know, Philadelphia's got that too. But once they start winning, they're very critical over in Philadelphia. It's a hot zone for a manager to go out to the mountain and, have that armor on, to go see his pitcher. Or take him out, actually. That's what he's going out there for.
It's like...
And so it's touch and go. It really is. It's touch and go.
Like what you mentioned, Showalter and Dusty Baker, Joe Girardi is the younger version. He was born around the same time as you. Girardi was born in 1963, like my dad as well, so you guys are all similar age. He is the younger version of the no-nonsense kind of manager that the MLB needs. And yet, while he was at the MLB Network, and he doesn't get enough credit for how good he was on air, he embraced analytics, but still combined that with his very traditionalist, no-nonsense approach. And I think that's going to make him an even better manager. We have to understand this, and this is the last thing we'll say about Girardi as we got about 10 minutes left. Joe Girardi was the manager of a 2006 Marlins team that was projected to lose 120 games. They won 78 games, and while that's below 500, what that told me, and he even did it in years when Derek Jeter was hurt in New York and they didn't have the best teams on the field. He always got the most out of his players, and you can't say that about most other managers. That is why I have the utmost respect for him, even if sometimes the way he dealt with the media was less than stellar. He kind of showed like a bit of a bitterness and like he was almost like a bit of impatience, but he still always got the most out of his players. And I think for that, he's just I love the hire. I wish he would have gone back to our team. I mean, you could take Don Mattingly and do what you want. The guy doesn't use a bullpen anyway.
Right.
I think he's going to be terrific. You know, it's just he just has a lot of the intangibles that you look for in a great manager.
Well, you know what, Mark? I'm baffled that Joe Girardi did not get the Cubs job because for a lot of years they were talking about him being an Illinois guy and did not get that job with a guy that's never managed before. So we'll take it there. Now, I'm going to throw an interesting comparison about Girardi and a guy that and we're going to change sports for a moment. Mike McCarthy got hired by the Dallas Cowboys, won a Super Bowl, a lot of great years in one place, and then got another opportunity. I'm not even going to count the Marlins thing as another opportunity because he won Manager of the Year. His only problem was the owner, but that'll be for another day. But when you talk about the hiring with Mike McCarthy and then Joe Girardi in the same off seasons for their respective teams, guys that have won championships, I think that's a pretty decent comparison, isn't it, Mark? When you talk about McCarthy versus Girardi,
really good one. I actually really like that.
What do you think, Mark?
You nailed it. You nailed it spot on. You know, you could see Jerry Jones up there eating his man. He was hurting up there. I think he wanted to come down there and fly down on the field and fire that guy immediately. About 2 games before the season was over, but he finally got to him.
Well, here's
to rebuild, and they're actually going to have a rebuilding year, and he's going to jerk some nuts and some tails right there real quick, and say, "Hey, this is the way it's going to be. It's going to be my way."
Well, that's true because I'll tell you what, when McCarthy got hired and Jones wanted input in his staff, McCarthy, I'm not interested. Well, Jerry's thinking, maybe I don't really need as much as I think I need, and, because let's put it this way. Mike McCarthy is not a yes man, doesn't have to be a yes man. Mm-hmm. He can pick his job any way he wants, just like Girardi waited a year until a better situation came around. Just like now
McCarthy did too, right? Yeah, McCarthy waited a year as well.
Oh, sure, he took a year off, tried to reevaluate. Oh, hey, the Packers are paying him, so what the hell's the difference, right, Mark? You're getting paid by the Packers, so you might as well sit there and just put that money in your pocket, reevaluate what you got to do, recharge your battery, boom, you're back at it again. Okay,
exactly right. So if you think about what we were talking about earlier, when we started about the Houston Astros. One thing that does come back to my mind, if we don't want to leave this out,
right,
is the part that Houston is probably the biggest of the whole bunch on the analytics. Mm-hmm. They really are.
Yeah.
And so there's probably more people involved in those analytics rooms than that manager, than those players, because. What can you do on film? What can you do on replay? Because I know they go underneath there and look at the video right after they're at bat or before they're at bat, and they pull their videos up. Why you got him on out last time? And that's was that cheating? Doggone it.
And they have iPads in the dugout now too. It's a total dichotomy.
Well, you got iPads in every sport. I've seen hockey coaches use them, the sport that Mark Littell, we found out, really loves. Not. Okay. And then, of course, we talk about the NFL where they got them on the sidelines. And I don't know what they do in basketball because I don't pay attention to that sport anyways. But no,
You got technology with the coaches coming down from the top, but, the only thing guy doesn't have is a quarterback, in his ear.
Yeah, right. So, don't give me any ideas. Who knows what they'll come up with next. But,
right.
I think when we summarize this whole cheating thing from the Red Sox to the Astros, Mark, what are your closing thoughts about what we've seen so far versus what lies ahead when we really try to put a bow on this whole thing?
Never a dull moment.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's there's going to be more things come out. I think baseball has been always, to me, from what I've seen and heard, the cleanest sport of them all, and they intend to keep it that way. And no matter what, that's just the way baseball is. It's a game of inches, and it's going to stay that way. It's going to stay a game of inches, and you better report anything that is a little bit hairy in the game. as a player, management, administrator, and owner even, because there's always these issues that are going to come up all the time.
Well, and here's the thing, Mark, to elaborate on your point a little bit, these are just the early forms of discipline based on these two incidents. Can you only imagine how much more discipline is going to be? Have they caught their attention with the early forms and how much worse it could get, how much you could find, how many more draft choices and whatnot? The early forms of discipline, Mark. Who knows what will happen if this trend continues?
Well, it won't continue because it'll stop, and because baseball won't allow that. Ownership doesn't want to be fined, and they don't want to have people basically pissed off at baseball or their home team and say, "Yeah, I knew they were all a bunch of cheaters. I'm not going to go out to the game anymore." They're overpaid. They're over this. There's always an excuse for the fan not to come and sit in the hometown seats. So they don't want that. They want the fan happy.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We're gonna
about the fans.
We'll talk about the fans next week. We want to thank Mark Littell. Lewis has one more thing he wants to add.
Before you go, Mark, we're friends on Facebook, and I saw that you were starting a little bit of a charity for an organization that you're very close to. Do you want to tell us about that real quick? You can plug it here and maybe get some more support for that.
The Wake Foundation is, it's helping wounded veterans, and I do things for the Wake Foundation. Matter of fact, we have a concert coming up February 14th in Missouri, and then I'll be going to 4 VA hospitals in the state of Tennessee. I'll probably go to one in Illinois and Missouri before the concert, and that's what I do. I make my rounds, and I go out and see veterans, and I thoroughly enjoy meeting the veterans. I really do. I love to sit down and talk. If they want to talk, I'm more than happy to sit there and talk to those guys. But the Wake Foundation, it's for my birthday, and so that's what I chose was a donation to the Wake Foundation, WAKE and Foundation.
Where can they find that, Mark? You want to tell our listeners that real quick?
You can go on Facebook. You can just pull it up and Google it, and they have also a spot there to donate as well.
I'll definitely be sending some money for that. As one of my friends who's actually in the military right now, he's set to be deployed in Afghanistan next year. So, you can never take for granted how important our freedom is, and we have to thank the people that do it for us.
So, Mark, am I gathering this right now, though? You're a Capricorn just like I am?
Oh, yeah, I'm Capricorn, I guess.
Okay, so...
I'm shady. Shady character.
Yeah, well, what does that make me then? Am I a shady character with you? I was born on December the 29th, Mr. Littell.
You're a hockey fan.
No, I'm a hockey writer. I don't view the word. There's a difference between a fan and a writer. I can't remember the last time I sat in a game and actually sat in the stands and no, I have to be in the press box where all the action is, man. I hunt for the news so that I can bring it on the air with people like you. So meanwhile, Mark, let's preview a little bit about next week's show, okay, if you mind. We've got another minute or so to go. We're going to be talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame next week. The inductions.
The announcement comes out Tuesday at 3 p.m. on MLB Network, and it's perfect because we have a show that night, so we'll have all the results and everything. We'll share what you guys give our takes on those guys, and I'm sure you'll probably have memories with some guys that you may have played with or even know from your days in coaching. And I'm sure you'll have stories from guys that you interviewed. I'll just have stories, supported by my love for numbers. So, well,
the one thing I probably want to do next week, Mark, if you don't mind, and that's why I'm giving you a heads up on it, is we might go a little extended on our episode because we're going to talk about the Hall of Fame inductees and guys that should be in the Hall of Fame. How does that strike you? Would you like to do that?
That's fine by me.
Yeah, I think we're going to roll with that one. I think you only get the opportunity to talk about the snubs, the guys in. That the snubs that didn't get in that particular year, meaning this year, 2020, the guys that got in and guys that should be in. So we'll be able to break that down basically into 3 formats, so to speak. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that. But meanwhile, Mark, happy birthday, fellow Cap.
There we are. Thank you very much.
No problem. So, all right, so let's plan. We have a date next week with Mark Littell, the Motor City Madmouth. My name is Scott Morganroth. Louis Adio. Why I say we gave him a name, I'll see if Mark Littell agrees with it. The Stat.
Yeah, or Mr. Stat, and then you got
that works.
Does it?
I like
you got
that.
the Mad Mazarian himself.
Yeah. But meanwhile, all right, well, we'll